My name's Mark McGowan, I'm the artist taxi driver, and this thing's called Culture's Not Your Friend, and it's from a video by Terence McKenna. It's about 3 minutes long, and he's talking kind of like what I'm doing here. I'll try and play it so you can hear it. It's really short.
What civilization is 6 billion people.
Oh no, you can't hear it. Okay, he said what's the world? It's like 6 million people living on each other's shoulders, kicking each other's teeth in. And he said, culture's not your friend. And some of the things that he started talking about was like, it was really brief. He say, we're led by the least amongst us, the least noble, the least visionary, the least intelligent, which I always say as well in my videos. But they all start shouting at him, and he say, oh, how do we fight back? And he said, oh, make art. So there's that whole distinct thing about, he's saying culture's not your friend. So I did this thing, the right to be lazy, which is about like, the culture culture is a form of control. You know, the way that the mass culture works, it's unfucking believable. It's like, it has everybody. You know, you can get really sort of intelligent people, you know, academics and, you know, people, and they love football. They fucking lose it. They lose their nuts, you know. They name their kids after the thing. They want their ashes on the turf. You know, football. The people that own football are the oligarchs, the sheikhs. It's a breeder of racism and hate. You know, it's a massive control thing. No, Frankie Boyle does that thing, isn't it? Have you ever seen Frankie Boyle? He said you should just get a big bunch of keys in front of football fans and just go, look at the shiny, shiny. You know, just start shaking it because they lose it. But it's the same last week with EastEnders. You know, even you must have friends that are even lost in it. You know, 25 million people. 25 million. You know, and it's saturation. You know, and then there's all the other culture like the music, the X Factor and the McDonald's. You know, I just want a little bit of it. Just a little bit of it. This country is one of the leading independent creative forces in the world. You know, absolutely smashes it. But they don't want things like Occupy. They don't want things like squatting. They don't want groups politicizing. It's like kill the art, kill the protest. They want to control the independent thing. Look at punk rock. Do you know what I mean? When it was around, it was like fucking, they own that now. They fucking own that. They drag in billions in tourism, saying that we're, you know, through punk rock. They own it. They take it. You know, the whole thing about having 1 million youth unemployed, you know, is how you construct a society. They don't want people to create. They don't want creatives. Michael Gove has smashed the school system. You know, my son goes to a school, he's 12. You know, when I went to school, you know, like just one day a week for 1 hour, across the whole year, they do either dance, art, cooking. You know, this is just 1 hour. You get one of these in 5-week blocks. The rest, they don't want creatives. You know, you know, 1 million youth unemployed. 1 million youth unemployed. Give them fucking guitars. Give them pens. You know, that guy picked up the Oscar last night. He went to fucking Eton. You know, they control. You know, it's a class thing. I was saying this the other day. I went to the opening of the Bethlehem. You should go there. It's a hospital. It's Bethlehem and Maudsley, and they're just opening up. There's some incredible art up there. And I was trying to tell the people, like, because I was in the mental hospital, so there's loads of people that like that'd been in there, like service users or whatever. And there was all, and I introduced it. I said to them, you know, it's a fucking class thing. It's a complete class thing. You know, they're allowed to have time to philosophize, paint, write, you know, draw, think, be. Now, I went to Edinburgh a couple of weeks ago and talking with the students. The first thing they say is like, are you really a taxi driver? Do you know what I mean? They don't know what to do. They don't know how to survive, how to be an artist. No, Peckham, got the university, college over there. No, it's really difficult to think, well, how do I be in this world? How can I? Because they don't want your culture. They don't want your independent thing. You know, they want to own it. They want to feed it to you, like with a big fucking spoon. Do you know what I mean? Like you're gonna love this. So Nina Power, you can come up, Nina. Nina's gonna come and talk. Nina's at Roehampton. She's like she does things about work. You know, there's a really interesting concept. Why do I have to go to work? Why haven't I got more money? You know, because that whole thing about the million youth unemployed. You know, to create a society, a better society, you'd be giving them fucking guitars. You'd be giving them pens. Okay, so Nina's
Thank you, Mark. I was in Mark's taxi once talking about work, and it was really hot. Don't know. All right, I'm a bit too tired from working, actually, to get really angry, so I'm going to read something out instead. It's actually really boring. It starts off by talking about transferable skills. You thought you'd come out for a nice night, but it's actually... And I wanted to say to Mark, I actually really like Pringles, but anyway. All right, so this is called Nothing Special. What, if anything, does anyone know how to do anymore? Education and employment is in a permanent frenzy about transferable skills. The fact that something is being transferred seems little in question, but the content of these skills is often obscure. Transferable skills seem to point to a generic set of human qualities that are supposed to be able to move freely from one discipline or arena, and between education and employment in particular, but whose depth is somewhat absent. The National Career Service describes transferable skills in the following way. Transferable skills are general skills you can use in many jobs. You gain these skills from previous jobs, projects, voluntary work, sport, your home life, hobbies, and interests. They enable you to be adaptable and flexible in case you need to change your job. Transferable skills are thus everything and nothing. They are general, they come from anywhere, including your private relations, and they encompass the past and the future. They are what ensure your smooth passage from job to job, in case, as the Career Service coyly put it, you need to change your employment. Transferable skills represent the admission in many ways of a failure to specialise, of a turn away from training and specificity, and maybe what Mark was talking about a bit about kind of creative skills as well. So a turning away from training and specificity towards the generic capacity of the human as such. What does it mean to be a generic worker today? What does it mean to live and work without specific skills? What does the labour force become if its major characteristic is its transferability? What does class struggle and workers' resistance look like? We live in an era of post-role work, where the narrowing of human possibility represented by the becoming a single thing, characterised by the skills and repetitive labour to be an engineer, a teacher, a baker, has been replaced by the insecurity of being nothing but transferability and flexibility itself. I want to think about what it means to be a worker in the age of transferable skills, to be measured in terms of the blurred nature of the relationship between those elements of your life that relate to your bearing as a human being, character, temperament, personality, and what it means to be a worker in a zero-sum, zero-hours contract environment. I want to think about what it means to be a transferable human being. So much of contemporary work is work that directly relates to emotion, by which I mean personality, your ability to play nice, appear attentive and friendly, to interact as if exchange wasn't lying at the heart of your relation, like a dead fish with a rock in its mouth. I'll start with an example. A friend of mine is threatened with the sack from his coffee shop job because someone emailed the manager to complain that he wasn't smiling enough. The sandwich chain Pret a Manger has explicit emotional labour rules, which state that staff must appear happy at all times and friendly with customers and each other. And you can see that every time you go, they're sort of forced to like hug each other. It's disgusting. Once a week, a mystery shopper is sent to each outlet. If he or she is satisfied with the happiness on display, the entire staff gets a bonus. If not, then no one does. What was originally a critical term to describe jobs in which, quote, the emotional style of offering the service is part of the service itself, as Ali Hochschild put it in her 1983 book, The Managed Heart, has now simply become incorporated as everyday service sector expectation. It is no longer enough to simply turn up and perform whatever physical labour or repetitive tasks might be expected of you. You must also appear to be enjoying yourself and convey this enjoyment to customers regardless of how you're actually feeling. Hochschild described this demand, and her work originally, she was looking at air hostesses, as potentially creating various kinds of splitting, where the demand to perform positive emotions clashes with internal affective states. Smile though you are crying inside. These performances can be superficial, or they can force you to recreate feelings you might have had at other times as a means of actually inducing that feeling again. Pretending to be happy at work by thinking of a time when you actually were, perhaps. But at what cost? What happens when our feelings are processed like raw ore? In service economies, these markets of emotion that dominate the richer parts of the world, we're used to dealing in multiple currencies, of which money is the bluntest. The raw ore of our personality, our individual behaviours, our gestures, our feelings, we imagine, occupies a far subtler realm where agency and responsiveness to others intermingle to create experienced life as such. But as the prep rules show, nothing is easier to exploit than that which we might do for free anyway. Before women's mass entry into the workplace, feminists used to talk about emotional labour and the labour of love in relation to the duties and expectations placed upon women. You must care for your children because you are a woman. You must care for others because you are a woman. You must do certain things out of duty because love is a kind of duty and a particular kind of labour. What does it mean to work in a world in which that private world of emotion, however cumbersome and one-sided it too was, has become a generalised expectation for all workers in the service sector and elsewhere? What does it mean to imagine that service is the paradigmatic mode of interaction and exchange between people, with all the radical hierarchies this implies? Buying a coffee that equals nearly an hour of the wage of the person who serves you, for example. Feminists a decade ago proposed smile strikes to highlight the expectation that women would always be bright and bubbly and attentive to men and their stupid jokes. Updating smile strikes for the service age might just generate enough grumpiness, like a ripple across the face of the city, to make it clear where the real causes of unhappiness lie. All hail the miserable men and women who serve coffee without a smile. Their refusal to act contains more than a kernel of truth and more than a mere hint of menace. But what does it mean to think about the transferability of emotional skills, especially if these emotional performances are causing so much cognitive dissonance? Back to the National Careers Service. As well as IT, numeracy, and good communication skills, they tell us that these are some of the common skills employers want their staff to have. Quote, problem solving, organising, working to deadlines, management and leadership, negotiating, motivating people, making decisions, research skills. Ideally, you would be a logical, timely, decisive, pragmatic, domineering life coach diplomat with a library card. Despite private lives being one place among others where transferable skills can apparently be accumulated, these character traits are not the kind of skills we would generally wish to find in our loved ones, where we might stress patience, gentleness, kindness, affection, excitement, etc. When the contentless qualities of transferable skills meet the demands of emotional labour, then we enter into a realm of hyperbolic self-branding. How else would individuals be able to differentiate themselves? Here the television show, The Apprentice, which I'm sure Mark watches religiously, becomes indicative. The title alone demonstrating that when previously one might be an apprentice to a trade or a skill, one is now an apprentice of an entrepreneur, and thus a kind of acolyte. As gurus and entrepreneurs need to trade in the currency of confidence, their desperate underlings must try to emulate this self-belief while simultaneously playing the role of punchbag to their leaders. Of course, the staged qualities of the show explicitly highlight the dynamics of a tyrannical tycoon confronting and chastising hapless job seekers, all of whom are in essence interns until the final real, in inverted commas, job comes through. We are invited to laugh at their preposterously poor business ideas, their misplaced self-enthusiasm, their competitiveness, but also to relate to them. We are them, and we don't even need the tyrant shouting, "You're fired," to understand that our place in the market is as fragile as a glass bauble suspended over an abyss filled with sharp rocks. The world of The Apprentice is also the world of a peculiar image and fantasy of adulthood. Last year, London school children made a short video entitled Mini Apprentice, acting out classic lines, in inverted commas, from the show, and playing different characters while wearing business suits, fake stubble and eyebrows, and quoting lines such as, "The world is full of too many wafflers. I walk the walk, talk the talk, and certainly dance the dance." The effect, while humorous and ridiculous in equal measures, Bugsy Malone meets the market, makes it clear that the real apprentice consists in essence of little more than overgrown children playing make-believe and dress-up, bolstered only by their transferable skills and ego labour. We're all children in the workplace, infantilised by work itself and chastised even and especially when we aren't even being paid. What about all those who lack transferable skills, even while we recognise them as laughably empty cover stories for insecure and precarious employment? What about those who are lovely but disorganised, compassionate but unable to lead, traumatised and unable to be diplomatic? What about those with fixed skills, obsessions, compulsions, the ability to focus on one thing to the exclusion of all others? The character type towards which all work tends, to which all employers desire is a monstrous human. The internalisation of the competitiveness of the job market creates unhappy creatures, part Thatcher, part talk show sentimentalism and self-belief. You cannot be seen to be desperate, to actually need work, as if you were applying to go out with a company, as opposed to merely work for one. The one thing you can't ever say when someone asks you why you want a job is the one reason why everyone fucking applies for one. I leave that blank. But now we appear to have moved beyond even the idea that labour should be paid. Just as those unable to work are no longer able to claim benefits, those without money are able to labour without being paid. The immaterial economy is one in which people are literally expected to survive immaterially, that is, without substance. The troublesome qualities of the human body, its need to eat, to sleep, to clean itself, are no longer any business of business. You're supposed to keep going on sheer self-will alone. A kind of idealism of the worker takes over. You don't own the means of production, but you are supposed to own the means of your own self-reproduction, as if bodies did not need to depend on outside sources of energy, but only pure self-determination. I will get this job! We need an approach to work that transcends the skill, non-skilled barrier, in which other qualities of being human are recognised away from the one-sided entrepreneur ego model. We need to admit that much labour involves the selling of emotion, and in ways that hurt us when we do not really feel able to be a people person or to smile as we serve up coffee or information. To be forced to become a transferable human being is to be corralled into the game of zero-sum, 0 hours existence. If we have any strength left, it may lie in our ability to collectively refuse to become transferable. Our bodies and our character form a resistance when they refuse to work in all senses. Lest we shall not be moved, then we shall remain unmoved, emotionally, physically, humanly. The end.